plus years of experience, 10 plus in Agile, and
Yeah.
worked in different domains as well. And yeah, as a trainer, many certifications are there. And as always, I highlight that many of the certifications I have done from my pocket. And then I consider that one is one of the very good investment. So I encourage you as well that don't wait for your company to reimburse the certification cost, but you can do on your own as well. I'm a good human being and getting better at it. And I like chess, solving puzzle, and
Yeah.
Sanskrit. I have started devoting more time right now to Sanskrit as a language. And I learned like to memorize verses, Sanskrit verses. So
Hmm.
I have memorized around 1,000 and then continuing, but the pace is not that much. But yeah, still going on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all from my side, Vijay.
Okay, thank you, Rahul. So, yeah, friends, my name is Vijay Vade. I mean, a lot of things on the screen. I would not like to go into too much of details of it. Uh, 22 plus years of experience into diverse industries. Started as an instrumentation engineer, and then I went into the IT domain of it because that's what was my interest. Uh, Worked into multiple profiles. Started as a senior developer in IT, and then uh, played role of a developer, senior developer, uh, product owner, a little bit of architecture, also Scrum Master for quite a long time. Also a requirement discoverer. So I was doing discovery for one of the project line that was actually especially in UK and Europe domain. Apart from that, yeah, I mean XYZ, I'm a consultant with many companies. And I'm an amateur marathoner. I run 42 kilometers marathon. Every year I want to bring in certain agile aspects into it and improve it. And that's how I've been able to improve it every year. Amateur photographer. So I click those chimney kawa, tigers kind of, that's where I am right now because of the COVID situation. Uh, this is what is the work situation is actually happening with me. So is this user scenario important? Is a question to you. I am in this domain right now. Earlier I was in Pune. Rahul is still in Pune. We were working out of the offices. So the user or you as an individual in a different situation. So does that bring in a different aspects into it? Does your requirement change? Does your expectation change? Just a question to all of you. In this pandemic situation, are your requirements, is your behavior changing? Is your behavior changing? Any one of you, please. In this new scenario, is your behavior expectation changing?
Hi, Vijay, Pradeep to here. Yes, it's definitely changing.
Okay.
Uh, because when the surrounding changes, environment changes, so everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Very.
means in my view that actually India was not ready for the work from home when it started.
Yeah.
Around the globe, I have seen people have home offices, but in
Yeah.
India, almost 99% people does not have that. So
Yes.
that's the thing which is getting changed. It's a learning for means us as well as our children, our family members. Everyone is learning and struggling.
Very good. Thank you, Pradipta. So this is considerable information where the user is, where the person is, in what situation he or she is, and based on that, the requirement changes. So I'd like to ask, hey Rahul, what is a software requirement in layman's language or a general language? What is a software requirement? What is it all about?
If you ask me very simple language, then I would say requirements from user perspective
Mm-hmm.
written in a very simple form.
Okay, very simple form.
Yeah, we should be able to understand that what it is required to be done
Hmm.
from the perspective of a user who is going to do this one. So
Yes.
probably it should not, or not most likely it should not bring jargons, right? If you put
Mm-hmm.
those words, then it
Yeah.
becomes very difficult. And then what you understand or what a particular word to you, a jargon to you, might be
Yeah.
completely different to me as well.
Yeah.
So we want to have it very simple. That's
Exactly.
one of the stuff I would like to put it.
Yeah. Also would like to ask, Rupesh, thank you for being online and switching on your video. That really motivates us. It feels like we are talking to humans rather than a machine. Yeah. So I have a scenario, Rahul. A plus B is equal to C is what I want to depict in the software that we are building. Okay. So earlier, when I was a developer way back, uh, I'm saying in about end of 20th century, and then what kind of requirements I used to get as a functional requirement, not a functional even, the typical code requirement. A requirement used to come to requirement manager, then it goes to designer. They used to work on it and they used to convert it into a very smaller form of it. The high level requirement converted into low level requirement converted into design specs and low level design specs. And that used to come to me as a developer. And developer used to say A plus B is equal to C. Now I'm more interested in A plus B is equal to C, code it technically. But does that differ if my user differs? For an example, if that software that I'm writing is for a small calculator which is being used by a shopkeeper, a small scale shopkeeper. Another calculator is for the engineering grads that are actually giving exams. So A plus B is equal to C. And the same A plus B is equal to C if I am actually creating for a banking domain software. Does that differ?
Yeah, certainly. We have to bring in the user perspective as well as the another aspect of user story or requirement is the why part.
Yes. Why?
What is the purpose? Otherwise, that would be something like kind of command control. You don't have to use your brain, right? Whatever is told, you just do it.
Exactly.
But that may not, because see, the person who is saying or describing the requirement, the person who is implementing, they are different, right?
Very good.
So that creates a big gap, right?
Yeah.
And then whatever we can do to minimize that gap would be ideal. So we also need to know the why part. That's also very critical.
If I also know why, and if I also know my user, so if someone tells me that my user is actually a shopkeeper, so I know that if a shopkeeper in India, what would he mean? A plus B is equal to C is 2 rupees plus 5 rupees is equal to 7 rupees. And that makes a lot of sense. Even if I don't have a typical decimal, even decimal up to 2 level is absolutely okay. 50 paisa additions of it. Yeah, that's fine. However, that A plus B is equal to getting implemented into a engineering grads calculator. So imagine A plus B is equal to C into decimals of, up to 10 levels. What would happen if I just give 2 decimal level output? That's how I write software. So according to the user, my writing software way is also getting defined. Yeah. So I know what user wants. If it is also getting implemented into the banking domain, even if I make a mistake of 1 paisa or 1 penny, what would happen? The whole banking industry would get sued, or bank will get sued because of that glitch. And the rest of the users will never trust them. If you can make a glitch of 1 paisa, you can also make a glitch of $1 million, right? As good as that. So user, his or her domain is really, really important. And earlier software requirement, the way it was written, now it has to change. So MyCon and people came out with something called as user story. So what is a user story? Simple language, as Rahul said. In simple language, a user defines what he or she wants and why part of it. Why? So user story is a short, simple description of feature told from the perspective of a person who desires the new capability, so that your developer, your tester, your architect, your designer can understand what would this user be actually doing with it and how we should actually build it. So that's what is a user story. And user story typically has 3 parts of it. The one we call it as 3 C's: card, conversation, and confirmation. Sorry for that. I think it's in yellow. I hope it is readable. Rahul, is it readable?
Yeah, readable.
It's readable, Vijay.
We can read it.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hey,
So
Vijay,
card.
On the chat, Kapil also has said something.
Sure.
What about the user story? At quite high degree, requirements are business problems which has to be solved, or part of the business problem which has to be solved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly, Kapil. So thank you so much. Putting it into your real domain of work profile as a software engineer or business analyst. So that shows up. Thank you so much, Kapil. So user story has three different parts: card, conversation, and confirmation. Okay, because in normal language, if you go to a doctor, if you're a doctor, imagine you're a doctor, the kind of patients that you get throughout the day, yeah, there would be certain patients that would come directly and they would say, I have a headache. And now you have a real problem understanding it. So you'll have to actually go deeper, asking more questions. However, there would be certain people who would tell you the whole story for half an hour and not the real problem. Right? So there has to be certain structure. Doctor has to define, dear patient, please put your information into this. So that's why user stories requires you to put it into a card, a conversation, and confirmation. So there is also importance to it. Let's really understand what is card. So card is simply a requirement in one sentence. It has three parts of it. Confirmation is the acceptance criteria from the requester or the product owner, wherein it would tell you, if you do this, I will accept this. If you do not do any of it, I may reject your implementation. And now conversation. So a small requirement and acceptance criteria may not give you absolute details to how to implement it. Developers especially need to understand it in their domain, that how does it look like? How do I not how do I code it, but how does it look like on your UI? What color or something like that you would like to put in? So there are certain notes that needs to be put in. So developer might put in certain notes, okay, developer or tester. So that would give them an idea when they actually go into implementation. So these are three C's we are discussing about it. So the first C of it, okay, card we call it. What is a card? If you actually see this line here, as a in bracket user, I want, what is that I want? Okay, so that what is my purpose? For an example, yeah, Rahul, if you are going, and imagine you are going to a company called Rupesh Online Company. And Rupesh company is actually replacing IRCTC. IRCTC is no more functional. And you want to book a ticket. So Rupesh's developer wants to understand what is your requirement basically. You want to book a ticket. So how would you put that requirement in this format as a user and
as a traveler or as a user?
mm-hmm.
I want confirmed ticket from A to B station, so that I have a peace of mind.
Or I can travel, right?
Yeah, I can travel, so I can complete my work. So confirm ticket, exactly. If I get it, I will have peace of mind and I can travel. Yeah.
Sure. So imagine you are a traveler now. If I do not have this user information, what will happen? Imagine what can other user be? Say for an example, Pradipta is the agent. Rupesh's company also has one agent scheme wherein people can go to agents and agents can book ticket on their behalf. So how would that change exactly? How would that user story change? What would be an impact? If you say that as a agent or train traveling agent.
Yeah, I can book multiple tickets at a time.
Yes.
So that I save time, or I can get confirmed ticket. And then there will be other options as well. Like if agents are there, probably I won't pay immediately, right? So as a user, as an agent, I want to book ticket first and pay later, so that I get confirmed tickets.
Exactly. So I think Rupesh is nodding his head. So I think he's in agreement with us as a product owner or company. Yeah, Rupesh, thank you so much. So what happens if a traveler actually books a ticket? He or she has to pay at the same instance. So there's a long requirement implementation. However, if agent comes in, what happens? They have a roughly around KT of 50,000 or 1 lakh. Up to that limit, they are not supposed to pay. So their ticket booking becomes really faster. So a developer knows if a agent comes in, I have to make sure that his ticket gets booked faster, and the money comes from the wallet, which is already stored with us. So that's how it differs. Yeah? So as a user type, I want what is that functionality he or she wants from you or Rupesh's company, and then so that what is the purpose? Okay, that depicts everything. Yeah. So here is the as an example, also an acceptance criteria. So Rahul, what is the meaning of acceptance criteria, and why should we have acceptance criteria? What do you feel?
Yeah, so when some requirements are given, right?
Yeah.
And how do I know that this is done?
Mm-hmm.
So if you
Yeah.
can answer that question, right? How do
Yeah.
I know that we are done or I am done or the problem is solved?
Exactly.
Then it will come up with it. There will be some sentences which we can describe, right? This will be done when this should happen. In this case, XY this should happen. So that becomes my acceptance criteria. But okay,
Yes.
this is my requirement. When I will say that my requirement is fulfilled, when something is met. So something is met, that's the word is we can call acceptance criteria. This is the criteria which it should met so that we can say that the requirement which was given is done. That's
Yes.
what. And then see, like you talked about the card, I would like to add a couple of things here. The card is a starting point.
Yeah.
It's not everything.
Yes.
You said, right, that many a times the end user also, they don't know that what they actually want, right? So if we can get a shortcut to get the things done, then everybody will be happy because we are not investing that much time. I remember the one incident from the Three Idiots movie, right? He was saying, the Amir Khan was saying that about the pencil, right? The virus gave him a pencil. Oh, this is what. No, similar to that. Somebody can recall that incident.
Why someone invented pen or a dot pen or a ball pen?
No, actually, Pradipto here, to remind you, actual story was, the question was, Mr. Shastrabuddhi was saying about invention of using a graphite, something, pen made with graphite or something that is used in space shuttles. And he asked why invent so many things and invent so many things. Instead of that, they could have used pencil. If ink was the problem, then why not use pencil instead of inventing a new kind of ink or a graphite ink, something like that? So it was the incident.
Yeah, Pradipto. Very good. Yeah. So the question was that the pen should work in zero gravity as well, and then they had spent lots of money on it, and then he said that why didn't they use pencil?
Yeah.
So the purpose, the why part is very important. So this actually, the card is a ticket to conversation. It should initiate the conversation that why you need this one. What do you think that when it will be done? So probably that requirement was not required at all. The graphite pen probably was not required. It was already available, but I think the requirements were given in a very complex terms, and then nobody asked. They said, okay, we really want to develop this one. We have money, we will go ahead and do that one. So that's very important part. So acceptance criteria probably it will involve. So product, this is one of the principle, agile principle, it says, right? The development and then the business should talk to each other daily.
Yeah,
that's very important. We should understand that why this was required. So probably that is the acceptance criteria, Vijay.
Exactly. Answer. User story tells you, or the card tells you that it a basic requirement. So it gives a creative freedom to your developer or tester. It's a creative freedom. You can develop it in multiple ways. But product owner says, yeah, you can implement your creativity. However, at the end, what I want is this thing should happen. For an example, if you are booking a ticket, so Rupesh will say that my person who's actually travel booker, he or she should get an email with confirmation, a PDF. Okay. Also, the money should come to my wallet. Then and then only ticket should be reserved. If the ticket is reserved, that should not be available to use by any other people. That should be blocked. And, so these are the acceptance criteria. If this does not happen, I will reject it. So you can also call it as rejection criteria. I call it more often like acceptance criteria are not typically acceptance, but the rejection criteria is wherein if you don't do it, I'll reject it. Yeah. So now, what is a conversation? The conversation
One
is,
question here.
yes.
Okay, you document the acceptance criteria here, right? Where do you document the eligibility criteria?
I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you please elaborate a little?
Okay, on this story, you can have the acceptance criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Where can you have the eligibility criteria?
Eligibility for this user story to happen or to implement, or the user is a valid user, and from that perspective are you talking about?
Whether this particular situation is eligible for development is the eligibility criteria. What you will develop is basically the eligibility criteria, or eligibility criteria can be on different scenarios. It can be a validation.
Mm-hmm.
So how do the eligibility criteria and acceptance criteria differ, and where are they documented? Eligibility criteria.
Okay. So if you actually see typical agile developments, there is somebody called as product owner. The role really cut out. The requirements that needs to be developed or implemented actually come from one person called as product owner. Okay, and it's not a committee; it's an individual person. Now the product owner prioritizes the requirement that whenever he wants, accordingly, and from the value perspective, he prioritizes. So I want this as on today, so obviously I'll prioritize it. So the moment it comes from the product owner, it is ideally eligible. However, your question is really valid. Sometimes what happens is there is also a technical dependency of a requirement. Technical dependency of a requirement in the sense you cannot release something to the market unless other thing is available. For an example, if somebody wants to book a ticket, there is some profile or data is needed. So in that case, people have a conversation for this prioritization in the backlog refinement. And they say, if this requirement is not done, the other requirement cannot be implemented. So you can also say that this is also an eligibility. So this is a kind of exercise or the process that defines whether this needs to be implemented or not. So it's not a typical eligibility criteria we write somewhere. It's not a documentation, but it comes into a priority. What needs to be done right now? So it's a collaboration that happens. It's not a typical eligibility per se we define somewhere. Does that answer, Rupesh?
Well, actually, just to add on this, there is something called a definition of ready.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where the requirement is ready or not.
So if you are talking about whether this user story is eligible to be picked up for the development. Yeah.
Okay.
Then
so
definition of ready will come into picture.
Sure. So let's hold that for a while. Let's understand the user story first, and at the end we'll discuss about it. Yeah. Once we discover the whole user story part of it. Okay. So I have certain user stories here on your screen. So tell me, are these stories written well? And if yes, why? And if no, why? There's a book shopper who would like to shop booking on your portal, online portal. So this is the overall software all about. You can consider it as like Audible or Amazon. And there are different scenarios. The way it is written on your screen, is it good? Is it bad? And if yes, what's the aspect? Can anyone tell, please?
I think the last one was a proper user story message.
Very good. Why? Thank you so much for.
So it gives that his requirement is clearly mentioned that so he wants to save this item and he can let us view this. So It's clearly mentioned that the
Very good.
requirement here. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, it's simple. It's clearly
It's simple.
depicted.
Yes. Clearly simple. Yeah.
However, you see the first one, as a book shopper, I would like to access my shopping cart from any page by clicking on a book icon with a hyperlink and a confirmation message before navigating to the cart page. Oh my, so much of information. And do you really expect a layman or a user to put it in this way? This looks like a typical technical language or technical person giving a requirement. Okay, so that I can quickly review that. So that part is okay, but I would like the part is too complex. Second is, as a book shopper, I would like to change the number of items in my cart as an admin. So you actually see here somebody saying as a book shopper, and in between somewhere is also saying admin. So there's a confusing statement. So I think, I don't know whether wrong or right, but it's not that simple. It's a complex situation, confusing. Okay. And there is also a requirement sometimes that user stories many a times should be finished in one iteration or one sprint. So how do I finish with multiple scenarios? Yeah, so this is kind of, you can also compare it to sometimes the use cases we already used it. So third one looks really good. So thank you, Shriman, for coming up with it. Now here, there are user stories.
Bhavesh also said the same thing. It is the least detail, and then the development team can figure it out that how to implement this one.
Very good. So as I said, user stories should be such depicting the clear requirement, but giving a creative freedom to your developer and testers, who are subject matter expert in developing it. You need not tell them you should have a shopping cart. There might be a very great solution than a shopping cart. You never know. Right? So let's have a creative freedom rather than telling them have a shopping cart in that I should add. No, not required. Let's give more creative freedom to developers. Yeah.
So Vijay,
yes.
So what I was saying is, if we really want to implement, and then the points which you highlighted, that first one was very descriptive, and then couple of users were highlighted. Is there a way or technique we can identify that how do we write well-written user stories? An easy way to remember, or these are the points we have to make sure that those are catered for, so that we understand, okay, yeah, this is a good guideline on writing user stories.
Oh yeah, very good. So very good question. So where are the details? What will exactly So would you like to add here? Let's see some good and bad user stories. Rahul, can you please?
Yeah. So which one is good and which one is bad? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Anybody can answer this one as a frequent traveler. So first one is a good story. It doesn't talk about how it should be implemented, but what should be implemented.
Yeah. So what part of it?
Yeah, rather than showing a radio button or other stuff. That is part of implementation. Probably development team can figure it out and then suggest a better way to do this one. If there are multiple, so that's what I would say.
Okay, shall I move to the next one?
Yep.
In fact, the use of the word select itself is something which we don't do because you have select boxes. You say choose.
Yeah, that is also there. True.
Good.
But okay, who would like to answer this one, or would like to share their views?
Yes, Rahul, we would like to quickly move on a little. Yeah. Anybody would like to answer, please, on this? Good or bad?
I see that right one is the better one as a returning customer. First of all,
sorry, Rahul. Yeah, sorry, Rahul.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think the second one is a better one, a logical one, because as a product owner, product owner responsibility is to select the product or something, but as a customer it is very important because this recommendation comes from the your past buying history, preferences, everything. So for
Yeah.
the customer, this product recommendation matches more than a product owner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will be returning customer. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Even the approach should not be highlighted. In the left one, select from a list of recommended products. I think the second one is much more cleaner. See products recommended to me. It can be
Exactly.
different.
Exactly. Exactly.
Different ways to show the stuff. Whenever I'm looking at some product, it can show at the bottom or side. So second one would be better because the user is written or highlighted clearly, and then how part is not there. What part is focused?
Exactly. So how
Yeah.
let how to be with the developer and tester, the people who are actually developing it. So that gives them the creative freedom. What is more important and why is more important? Yeah. So there's something called as also invest model, right? People, do you know about invest? A story has to follow invest, and that would be a good story. So what is that invest model like? A story has to be independent of other stories in the way of implementation. You should be able to implement it. It doesn't mean that it has to be absolutely independent, that the other stories, even if not available, this will give you absolute value. No, because user stories gives value in tandem with others, in collaboration with other user stories, and that's how it makes a feature. But while implementation, I should be able to implement it or code it separately, independently. That doesn't stop me. Okay. Next is negotiable. The scope of it should be negotiable. For an example, if you want to make a smaller user story, which you will be able to finish it in one iteration or a sprint, in that case, the scope you will have to reduce. So you will be able to negotiate it. Your product owner says that, yes, I want a booking with all the banking options. And you say that, yes, probably I might be able to give a user an option to book with wallet, credit card, net banking, and everything. What's not? But I would need more and more time. In that case, what will happen? I won't be able to deliver it in this iteration, and it won't be demoable or valuable for an end user. So would you like it iterative and incremental or big bang? So in that case, you will negotiate and break it into smaller chunks.
Negotiable also in the sense that once it has come to backlog, then it cannot be used. No, that is not the case. Yeah, you still can negotiate. The requirement still can change. There can be addition, some acceptance criteria can change as well. That's the negotiable. The discussion based on the discussion with the development team, user story should be negotiable. It cannot be written on a stone. It cannot be changed.
So it is not actually fixed. It can be negotiated. Yes. Then valuable. The requirement has to be, or user story has to be valuable from the end user perspective. It has to have certain value, deliver certain value. Yeah. It should be estimable. You should be able to estimate it. Then sized appropriately. Sized appropriately in the sense a story can be written which has a big and large scope. However, it can be written into small version, breaking into it. So what is the size that you want to have? You want to deliver it in half the sprint or 2 days or maybe 4 iterations. So accordingly, you need to size it. Okay. And then it has to be testable. There should be certain testable criteria that you can apply, and someone apart from you can verify it or validate it. Yes, it is done. Okay. So these are the criteria. Invest model, we call it.
Let me give one example of the testable.
Sure.
Normally we say that everything is testable, but if the product owner says that the page should load very fast, or the screen should look good, now it should very fast. It's relative, right?
Yeah.
So we cannot verify that, okay, this is really loading very fast. So we have to get the data that, okay, it is within 2 seconds, within 1 second, within 3 seconds. That would be testable.
Yeah. Exactly. So whatever you say, it has to be a little smart, specific, measurable,
Yeah.
yeah, achievable, realistic, and time bound. Okay. Then there is something called as acceptance criteria. So user story should be like this. What kind of acceptance criteria? How do I actually mention acceptance criteria? So what kind of acceptance criteria we should have? So for an example here, as a shopper, I want to order and pay for the book via secure web-based form, so that my credit card data, I feel that it's really safe. So what should be an acceptance criteria? All mandatory fields must be completed before a customer can submit a form, like name, email address, phone number, license number, power basic, etc. Payment can be made via MX card, Visa credit card. Very clear, very specific. Okay. Now the system shall accurately calculate and apply sales tax. The system shall accurately calculate and apply shipping charges. Acknowledge email sent to the shopper submitting the form. And there are many things that you would like to add, like convey that your data with us is secure. We are not storing any data of your credit card. So every time you come to our website, it would be absolutely, you have to enter it. Okay. We have also given you maybe an additional on-screen, alphabetical or numerical numbers that you can, so that your key shots cannot be captured. So these are the things that you like to add. So you can make it more and more clear, so that a developer or tester must know that what I must not do and what I must do, so that this requirement is absolutely complete. Would you like to add, Rahul, anything on this?
No, perfectly. I think very well explained on this one.
Sure. And then many people ask us about what is Epic, what is theme, what is a feature or something like that. So I ask them, I tell them a bigger user story, you can call it as an Epic. For an example, Rahul, please add a pigeon, because you are good at mythology and everything. So for an example, if I say about Ramayana or Mahabharata or any of the Buddha's epic, a big long story that runs on your Doordarshan or your channels for maybe a year or maybe 10 years, something like that. But what happens if you actually see any of the episode on any given day, one episode, does that give you value? Does that give you some morale? Does that give you some learning?
Yeah.
Yes. So an episode on one given day, you can call it as a user story or a story, a small story, which is valuable. You can understand there is some moral of it. But there is something called as, I don't really remember exactly, Sundar Kand or Kand, something like that, or a chapter, which is a collection of multiple stories, right? And you can call it as a feature. And then the whole Ramayana or Mahabharata is a very big epic, which has multiple users in it, multiple functionalities, multiple morals in it, multiple learning objectives in it. So this is a whole big epic. So what is an epic? I would say that a collection of multiple stories that holistically make a bigger user stories with more objectives, more learning. So here on your screen, if I say as a customer, I want to buy an ebook so that I can read it online. Yeah, very simple, very basic requirement. But while I go to implement, will I be able to do it in smaller iteration or incremental? No. So your developer comes and say, hey Rupesh or hey Kapil, I cannot do it in an iteration. Okay. So how do we break it? So we break it in a valuable chunk. Rahul and we have discussed about invest, right? A user story has to be independent plus valuable. So break it in certain chunks that it's valuable. So for an example, we break it into, as a customer, I want to search an ebook, because search is a functionality. There might be users who will just come and search on your website but not buy it. Does that give a value? Yes, it gives a value. Is it testable? Yes, it is testable. Is it small? Probably, I don't know. Okay, but how can I break it into smaller chunks that it becomes small enough for iteration? So yes, let's break a search functionality into smaller. Search by author, search by title, search by language. So if you give our demo only search by author. So dear users, right now there's only functionality of search by author. Does that really help you? And author says, oh yeah, very good, because many times I want to search books by the name of the author, like Rahul Shah, and I get all the books by Rahul Shah. So it's really valuable. However, will it be an epic? May not be. Will it be absolute feature? A small feature, but I would also like to have it by title. So very good. So Rupesh or Kapil, we would come with title in the next iteration because it was not small enough. So let's make it iterative and incremental. And that's how we break it. So epic. Now, Rahul asked me, what is theme exactly all about? What is theme exactly all about? Now, all of a sudden I think about it and I say, Rupesh, who's the owner of this particular, and he says, hey guys, I want to be more profitable, but I want to go into large scale. So I want to give more discounts to people on certain titles. Oh, on certain titles. So what kind of titles? So maybe especially the titles which are mythological stories. Okay. And you want to give discount. So what is a theme? A discount on mythological topics. That's a theme for you. So now developer will go to all the stories which are already developed. He will go and do a little bit of adjustments. So what is theme here? Discount as well as mythological books. So based on that themes, wherever he will go and touch, that falls under that theme. So themes is a collection of user stories which gives a kind of one common theme. So that is how epic and themes happens. There are certain non-functional user stories. People ask us, how do I deal with it? So we say, me and Rahul, yes, you deal with it as if it is a normal user story. So what is a non-functional user story? For an example, as Rahul already said that our website should be able to respond the moment you click on certain things within 2 seconds. Okay, within 2 seconds, which is really subjective sometimes based on the internet connection that you use. But he says, no, for all the internet connection, it must open in 2 seconds. Awesome, that's a scenario for us. Now, how do I break it into smaller chunks? Okay, I will break it into maybe only this time I'm only considering about the Microsoft or Internet Explorer. Maybe next time onwards I'll check it about the Mozilla Firefox, or maybe I'm thinking about certain machines itself. I'm not thinking about the mobile application now. Later on I'll think about mobile. So consider it as if it is a normal application. So you can write it the same way you write it on functionality. Yeah, but the basic requirement is now on your screen. If you see, there are 2 types of stories, story 1 and story 2. As a job seeker, I can post a resume. Which one is good? Which one is bad? You have sliced a user story in order to break it into smaller parts so that developer can develop it. Which one is good? Can you tell me? Rahul, which one is good from your perspective? One story set, first one and second one. As a job seeker, I can fill out a resume form. Second, I'm saying information on resume form is written in the database. Okay. Second time I'm saying the second way of breaking it, job seeker, I can submit a resume with only basic information, name, address, and this thing. And second time I'm saying that job seeker, I can submit a resume with all the information as an employee. So I'm extending it.
Yeah.
Extending
So for me, the second part is much more valuable and sensible because I'm completing one action from end to end.
Yes.
The first one, I'm left halfway, right? I'm not entering into the database, but second one, I can break it further as well. So that makes more sense.
So it makes more sense from a user perspective because user is not really interested in your database, right? He's more interested in the functionality. In the first part, you are giving second story. It's I mean, something which is really not realizable by the user. You don't know what kind of database or whether you're not using database. Even if it happens without database, that's absolutely fine. So how we break a user story? We should break the slice horizontally, cut the cake vertically rather than horizontally. So break the stories in such a way that it has your user specs, user interface, business logic, middle layer, database. So it gives end-to-end functionality. So rather than breaking horizontally that I create a user interface, give everything knowledge. It should be valuable. It should be independent. Yes, I think someone has a question. No? Okay, so thank you. Let's move on to next one. There are certain special type of stories that we generally speak about. And people ask, what is spike? What is research? What is tracer bullet? Tracer bullet bullet is a less used word. However, what is spike? So spike, I generally put it as a time box given to individuals or a set of people to invest in coming out with certain clarity on certain requirement. You can call it as enablers. For an example, there is a scenario you are not aware whether to implement it this way. The functionality should be implemented or not, whether this functionality would make sense or not. So it's a kind of POC that you would do sometimes. So in that case, what is the value that the end user is getting? Nothing. What you are doing, clarifying the situation whether to have this functionality or not, and sometimes technical spikes like whether to implement this functionality in this way or not. So you have multiple options, option A, B, C, and you say which one to choose from. Okay, whether to do it and which one to choose from. These are the scenarios where you would like to give your expert people or developers a time that they would explore and implement it. So that specific time is called generally a spike. You know, what is knowledge? What is a tracer bullet? Tracer
Amol,
needs to be, needs to be validated. For an example, Kapil asked, is that implementable? So Rahul and his team, what they would do, they would do a little bit of small prototype. Rahul would say that I will have the database of not all the trains, but only 2 dummy trains. Okay, because I want to validate the complete scenario. And then Rahul will say, I would have a search functionality, but not on all the aspects. He will say just by the train name or train number. And then he will give book. He will say that I have a dummy database there, that there is a money inside the wallet, and I'll just take money from there. And then the booking part of it. The moment it is booked, you will get an email. So what is the kind of prototype he's doing? End-to-end functionality, which cannot be implemented in 1 iteration or 10 iterations even. So he is actually creating an end-to-end scenario for you with a minimal implementation. So that is called as a validation of the absolute bigger scenario, and that's why we call it as tracer bullet. So these are very special additional types. Just wanted to give it. So yeah, that covers everything that we wanted to cover, and it's open for questions, please. We have around 7 minutes. So open for questions.
Hi, Vijay. Thank you for your session, Vijay and Rahul both. Pradipta here.